Hi everybody, this is Brandon from the Center for Blade Arts in Minneapolis, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to keep your weapon clean. Most of this is applicable for any kind of weapon that you're fencing with. I'm going to specifically show one of the weapons that we use for HEMA. So there are a couple of things that you have to take care of with a longsword or with one of the kind of nicer HEMA trainers that you wouldn't really need to do with an Olympic weapon, but it's still interesting information one way or the other. So the stuff that I'm going to use is all readily available either at hardware stores or online. The two products that you want to get a hold of if you can are Renaissance wax, which is good for everything. A lot of people in the museum world use this for restoration and just to prolong the life of wood and leather and metal. Works like a charm, and I've had this for 2 years. I've used a sixth of it, maybe. Lasts a really long time. The second thing that you want to get for anything that you have that's leather is OpenUp's. Apparently you can't really read that. I will tell you how to spell that. It's O-B-E-N-A-U-F-S, OpenUp's. And this stuff works like a charm for leather grips. The grip on this weapon is 2 years old, and it gets used all the time, and there's no wear on the leather whatsoever. Normally I go through 2 grips a year, and so that OpenUp's is really doing a great job of keeping this leather in good shape. So those two things, the Renaissance wax and the OpenUp's, you can get online really easily. They're both available on Amazon. Other than that, you just need stuff from your local hardware store. I've got a couple of sanding blocks. This is the one that I use most of the time. If you've got some really big pitting, you might want one that's fairly aggressive. This one is not, it's not too crazy with the abrasion, so you do have to use a little bit of elbow grease. You also need a couple of different grades of steel wool. I would argue that it's better to use stuff that's a little bit too fine and work a little harder rather than using stuff that's really aggressive and you don't have to scrub as hard with because, well, you can always scrub a little longer, but if you scrub too much and put a bunch of scratches in it, that's going to take you a huge amount of time to get out. And then finally, what you want is a quick clean cloth. This is hops number 9. These are for cleaning guns. They work great. And I would say every time you get done training, you want to use one of these cloths on every part that's metal. If you do this, you're really not going to get very much rust in the first place. All right, so it's very simple. All you need to do is any place where there's rust on the blade, you take your scouring pad and do little circular motions like this all the way up the blade until you get all the rust off. Once you've done that, you go over the entire thing with some steel wool. Then take a little bit of the Renaissance wax, a very, very small amount, on a cloth, barely visible, and just rub that on. Let it stay on there for about 10 minutes. Poof, magic, it's 10 minutes later. And then you just rub it off like that, and it will leave a very light film that will preserve the blade quite nicely. With the OpenUp's, all you need to do is spread a tiny bit of that on the leather. Let it work in. You want the heat from your fingers to do this, so you don't use a cloth. Actually stick it on your fingers. It will melt the wax in. Let it set for about half an hour and buff it off. Once you've done that, hit all the metal areas with your little gun clean sock. After every training, you're good to go. That's really all you have to do. When you have some serious areas of rust, like you can see here on this pommel, you're really going to have to spend a little bit more time. You need to really abrade the thing like that, but you want to make sure that you get that off. Don't let the rust stay on the weapon. If you buy a nice weapon, usually buy mine from Arms and Armor in Minneapolis. You buy a nice one, they last a really long time. there are no cheap weapons. You either buy an inexpensive weapon that you have to replace after a couple of years, or you buy an expensive weapon that lasts you a really long time. This one's 7 years old. It's in great shape. All right. Stay inside, keep training every day, and think about sword fighting all day long. We will see you as soon as we can. Take care.